Game 4 up here, and we have King's Court on the board, which is quite powerful, and I often underestimate how powerful it is. There's also no trashing, but there is some draw cards in Caravan and Hireling. Also, if you manage to land your King's Court on markets, for example, that'll draw cards. And additionally, there's the King's Court scheme interaction. So if you get to pair those two, then you could put 3 action cards of your choice back on top of your deck. So what I was looking at the beginning of the game was to maybe get something going with a lot of draw and Artificer. So the first step in getting lots of draw is to pick up an armory to gain lots of caravans. Later on in the game I can get more schemes or even farmers markets if I want to. So my opponent goes for armory silver against my armory scheme. The silver obviously is to gain some of the more expensive stuff, maybe Hireling, definitely King's Court. And I am going to pick up a silver of my own here, not top decking it with the armory, but just buying it regularly. Luckily my scheme and armory do collide here, which means I get to play that twice in one shuffle, which is real good news for me. Good news in terms of winning the caravan split, right? It seems like draw is important here because you don't have much trash in, so the more draw that you can muster up is probably better for you. So 5 for my opponent is the Artificer. I agree with that, and I'm going to pick up an Artificer on my first 5 here. It is a guaranteed caravan when you play it, and it might even do you a little bit better if you could get it on a turn where you have a bunch of caravans in play. I am picking up these caravans quite quickly here because of my early scheme. My opponent has a silver in place of this scheme here, so I suppose he wants to go after the King's Court more quickly, which is what ends up happening here. Whereas, as I mentioned earlier, I was more interested in the plan of getting a lot of draw on the board to make Artificers a lot better. So as the game goes on, you'll see that this Artificer does well, right? Gets a caravan and the armory gets me another caravan, both on top of my deck. But as you'll see later on, I do overestimate the strength of Artificer on this board. So what I am thinking of here right now is to try and line up a King's Court on a Hireling just to get a lot of draw in the deck. Hopefully it'll let me draw my whole deck if I am able to do that, because I am in front with the caravan split right now. My opponent is unable to even buy the last caravan here. So it does open up a good opportunity for me to pick that up. But I don't end up going for that right now. I see a lot of my caravans here, stick all of them in play. I can't really do anything but that. And it does get me to 7 silver at the very end of the deck there to pick up a King's Court. Now I am going to put the scheme back on top of the deck for the King's Court scheme interaction here. And we'll see where things go from here. I do have an Artificer in the deck. I would like to see that at some point. Not at some point, but I would like to see that while I have this increased hand size from having 4 caravans in place. So do manage to find the Artificer, and here is where I start to put my plan into motion with the draw. The caravans are obvious, they're nice and easy to pick up with the armory. But what I am going to do here is set up my turn so that I am able to stick a Hireling on top of my deck, and I'll use the scheme to put the King's Court back on top of the deck. So that way I'm guaranteed to have King's Court and Hireling at the top of my deck. So I am going to discard this caravan here, not going to play it for favor of picking up a Hireling, and 5 here is just gonna be enough to get another caravan or another artificer. I choose the artificer because, well, that's what the armory is for, right? I'm not gonna buy caravans, but maybe I should have bought that caravan regardless. So here you see the play excuse me, you see the play of King's Court and Scheme, and I'm gonna put the King's Court back on top of the deck along with a Scheme and an artificer. So here I am gonna pick up not pick up, but set into play King's Court and Hireling on this turn as my opponent goes for another King's Court. So, effectively what has happened so far is that I am hedging. I don't know what hedging means, so I shouldn't use the word hedging, but I am saying, look, I believe that with more draw, I can put myself in a better position than with more King's Courts. And as I mentioned at the beginning as well, I underestimate how powerful it is to play an action 3 times. So I do get the Hireling down with the King's Court, but it does mean that that King's Court is never going to appear in my deck again. It will be outside with the Hireling for the rest of the game. So as it stands, my opponent has 2 King's Courts in his deck and I have 0. So we'll see where things go from here. He manages to find King's Court on Scheme, so he is going to have that King's Court with action cards of his choice from now till the end of the game, really. And he manages to find his other King's Court and is able to play it down on an Artificer here. So now is where the game starts to move away from me, because I was wrong in my assessment that having more draw in this game means that you would be in a better position, and I can't even say that for sure, because what my opponent eventually ends up building is a deck that actually draws quite a bit of cards, even though he lost the Caravan split and does not have this Kinged Hireling in play. So using the Artificer to gain a King's Court, which goes on top of the deck. So again, now the count is 3 King's Courts to 0 in my deck. I do have 1 in play, but that does me no good in my deck. 6 for my opponent is going to be a market here. So searching for a little bit of plus buy. I guess now with the increased hand size in their deck, they can make use of that extra plus buy. So they kinged a Scheme and another Scheme came out. So I assume 2 King's Courts will go back on top of the deck, plus a Scheme and an Artificer. And there's another King's Court on top of the deck from his previous Artificer play. So his hand is King, 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 Scheme, Artificer right now. And as I find out, that is a lot stronger than just having 1 king on a hireling for the rest of the game here, because I am in no kind of position to do anything remotely as strong as my opponent is threatening right now. In fact, I don't even go and pick up a King's Court here. I use my Artificer to gain a market and just pick up another Artificer. So still no King's Court for me there. I definitely should have rectified the situation by picking up a King's Court, but nope, I did not go for that. Again, I still believe that my my extra draw would see me through here. And now, well, as you'll see, I'm not even sure if I have the extra draw. So my idea didn't come through in this game, right? I overestimated the power of Artificer, and it eventually cost me big time, because my opponent's gonna have a nice big turn here, getting to, you know, king nearly all the actions in his deck. He dedicates one of his King's Courts to a Caravan here. I wasn't sure about that, but actually maybe that's better than what I did with the Hireling, honestly, because he is gonna get what, the 3 cards this turn, plus I believe 3 cards next turn from that Caravan, and then the turn after the King's Court goes back in his deck, so he could use it on something else. whereas my king's court is held hostage by this hireling, so to speak, right now. So my opponent uses Artificer to gain another king's court here. So 4 king's courts to 0. He's gonna buy another king's court. He has 5 king's courts in his deck. I have 0. This I should not have allowed this situation to arise. And now with the scheme, everything that he wants goes back on top of the deck. Everything that he wants, and he's looking very well set up here to handle the end game, which is quite close given that my opponent could king our market. He could also, get a lot of draw up with King Artificer. So as it turns out, what he's doing is better, using the King's Court scheme engine to stack back King's Courts and Artificers on markets, and just going from there. So I do see a lot of my deck here. Now I am finally going to pick up another King's Court. 5 to 0, that's not good. That's losing in almost any deck ever if you have 0 King's Courts to your opponent's 5. Going to king the market here for some money, for some plus buy potentially. Gives me a little bit of draw as well. Hopefully, I was looking to gain 3 King's Courts this turn, but I don't think I could do that. I can only gain 2 King's Courts, and I do have to trigger a rather nasty shuffle to do that. That is a consequence of having 6 caravans in play all at once. I don't have enough draw to pick up everything yet, right? So I don't know, the lopsided nature of the caravans didn't really work well with the artificers here. Another market because I don't want to deplete the artificer pile, and another King's Court. Maybe I considered province here, but I didn't think my opponent could end the game. But as you saw in the procession match, I was wrong then, and I'm wrong here. He does have the potential to end the game, and he is going to do so on his next turn. So, I might as well be playing Stonemason here, because this man is very good at 3-pile endings, and he uses his artificers to good effect to complete that goal. Kinging the armory to gain 3 schemes is obvious, and he uses his artificers, I believe, to pick up at least a King's Court, which he then uses again and finishes out the game. He even had enough money to buy a colony alongside the final King's Court, so buying that province would not have helped me in that situation. So yeah, as it turns out, my idea was just not as good as my opponent's idea, and playing this match has made me realize, you need to have an idea, right? And hopefully your idea is good and is probably the best thing to do on the board. I was ahead in the early game, I believe, with all my caravans, and I did have the artificer and whatnot, but then I stopped for a hireling and I put the King's Court on the hireling. Stopping for the hireling isn't so bad, but maybe putting the King's Court there wasn't the best thing in the world. I didn't realize how strong this King's Court scheme thing could be, and well, my opponent showed me otherwise. So that is game 4 for you here. Very instructive to me. Very instructive to me here. My opponent telling me King's Court scheme better than King's Court hireling over here. So that's how it ends, and thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.